Hey everyone, I'm Majiin and welcome in to World Tour Weekly, your one-stop shop for all competitive flesh and blood news. The World Championship is now only a few weeks away, and we have not only another week of ProQuest data, but LSS dropped a banned and restricted announcement that should have a pretty large impact on the Living Legend format. Let's get into it. Okay, I wanted to start off today by going over the BNR first. Now, it only affects the Living Legend format, but that's a pretty big deal if you're going to be playing in Worlds or you have a Living Legend ProQuest coming up. The changes are as follows. Deadwood Dirge is restricted once again, and Rosetta Thorn is banned. I recommend giving the full article a read as it gives a pretty good amount of insight into why the decisions about the banned and restricted announcement for Living Legend were made, but I'll also give you a TLDR version here. LSS first starts off the article by talking about how the run-up to the Living Legend portion of the World Championship was not exactly executed the best and apologizes to the players. They then go on to mention that although the planned ban and restricted announcement was for next week, they feel it's best to implement these bans now. That way players have time to properly adjust before the tournament, which I very much appreciate. The article discusses about how, despite their early adjustments, Runeblades are currently better than anything else in the format, and that there's going to be a wholesale review of Living Legend later. For now, though, their priority is to make Worlds a good event, while not completely rug-pulling the players who have spent the last month practicing, which, again, I very much appreciate. They talk about how Deadwood Dirge should not have been unrestricted in the first place, and I definitely agree there. They also talk about how giving Rosetta Thorn the ban simultaneously brings all the Runeblades down a peg, and while that is true, I'm a bit sad about it because I have a lot of nostalgia for the card. Finally, they say that this will be the final balanced decision before the World Championship, which is very nice to know because you don't have to worry anymore about what ifs. Okay, so those are the changes. Let's talk about how it actually impacts the format. The heroes that get the hardest are obviously Viserai and Chain. They, coincidentally, are also the two best performing decks in the format up until the ban. Old School or Boomer Chain definitely cares more about the banning of Rosetta Thorn than it does the restricting of Deadwood Dirge, but that version has fallen out of favor recently due to the overwhelming dominance of the RuneGate Chain style. If you're not familiar with the deck, it plays a lot of ways to build up rune chants like Read the Runes and Deadwood Dirge. It then capitalizes on that by playing the powerful RuneGate cards you can see in Vinset for free, like Widespread Destruction. If that's still tough for you to imagine, picture Vinset in your head, but instead of banishing out of your hand, you banish off the top of your deck. And she gets free go again every turn. It's pretty good. It relies on hitting a certain threshold of rune chants in order to play the RuneGate cards for free out of the banish zone. If it can't hit that amount, then it simply can't play the cards at all. Obviously, Read the Runes still helps, but Deadwood Dirge was the best card at facilitating these powerful RuneGate attack turns. Not only would it make the rune chants that you needed, but it also had go again on the card. And that's not all. You could also sacrifice one of your soul shackles to the ability, keeping them at a manageable amount throughout the game. He does also lose Rosetta Thorn, but I feel like this version doesn't care about that quite as much, although the card did help a lot for keeping spellbound creepers around for multiple turns. Overall, I think this banning is rough for Chain. The RuneGate version was severely hamstrung, and I'm not sure that the old Boomer version has what it takes to keep up with the current format. Alright, let's move on to the other top Runeblade, Viserai. Viserai also has two ways of playing, but unlike Chain, it happens all in the same deck. He can either be an incredibly efficient aggressive deck with split damage that's hard to block properly, or he can set up a ton of rune chants, use them to power up a gigantic Sonata Arcanix via Bloodsheath Skeleta, and blow up their opponent in one turn. What makes him so powerful and so hard to properly counter is that he can do both of these things in the same game. Powerful tools like Deadwood Dirge allow him to either push a lot of damage on offense or slam on the brakes and stack up a lot of rune chants very quickly for a combo. Now, with Dirge restricted again, I think the deck loses a little bit of power, obviously, but I think it loses a lot in flexibility. I feel that if decks want to go the combo route, it's a bit harder now, and they might have to dedicate more slots to it. He does undoubtedly lose a step with the restricting of Dirge and the banning of Rosetta Thorn, but I think he's probably still going to be the best aggro deck out there. Now, Briar does get hit as well, losing Rosetta Thorn, but she always felt like a step behind the other two Runeblades to me. It's totally possible that she's better than Chain now, but I still don't think she's going to be better than Viserai. I'm hoping that this change allows some different decks to do well in the format, but I'm a little bit skeptical that they'll be able to outrace the Runeblades and still deal with Starvo. I suppose we'll see in a few weeks though. All right, that wraps up the banned and restricted announcement. Now let's shift over to the ProQuest data in today's Metagame Minute. Now, I'm going to spend very little time actually talking about the ProQuest data for Living Legend because the banned and restricted announcement changes the format. But last weekend, Chain did win half of the events. Viserai won 2, Starvo, Dromai, and Pleiades each won 1. I have no idea what that Pleiades list looked like, but I would really like to know. Moving on to Classic Constructed. It seems like Verdance is back on top with 18 total wins. She's followed not too far behind by the other established top decks, Syndra and Gravy Bones. What absolutely shocked me is that Kano is the next highest finishing deck. I talked about how he seemed to be winning less events as the ProQuest season went on and wouldn't hit Living Legend before Worlds, but if he keeps this up, he definitely might be gone. He's currently at 972 Living Legend points, and we still have 2 more weeks of ProQuest, plus a few Battle Hardens and a Calling before Worlds, so it's going to be super close. I definitely feel for the Kano mains planning on playing in Worlds right now. It must be really tough to not know whether or not your hero will even be legal for the event. Alright, going back to the metagame breakdown, Victor also had a really good week with 6 wins. He's a hero I haven't heard much about recently, but he seems to be doing just fine in these events week after week. After him is basically the entire Flesh and Blood roster, showing that you can definitely find success with a ton of different things in the current metagame. Alright, now we've talked about the metagame, let's talk champions in today's weekend winners. This last weekend, we had Battle Hardened Baltimore showcasing the Living Legend format, and Brody Spurlock took first place playing Chain, Bound by Shadow. Yet another win gives Brody a much needed shot in the arm in the Player of the Year race as we get closer and closer to Worlds. Brody now has 138 points, putting him clearly in first place, but Jacob Clemens has been making up a lot of ground in the second half of the year and now is only 16 points away. The third place spot is fought over not by 1, but by 2 Michaels, with Michael Hamilton at 91 points and Michael Fang right behind him with 88. It really seems like we're going to get a photo finish at the World Championship, which is super exciting. Congratulations again to Brody Spurlock for taking down the Battle Hardened last weekend. Alright, now it's time once again to look into the future and see what we have coming up. There are only 2 weeks left of the ProQuest Yokohama season, so make sure you get out there and fight for your spot to compete at the highest level of competition in Japan next year. As it gets closer and closer to World, each event feels like it almost gets more important since players are going to be watching super closely to see what's good. We only have a few events left before the World Championship, but this weekend we have 2 big ones, Battle Hardened Tacoma and Calling Sydney. Both of these events will have Classic Constructed as the headlining format, and Calling Sydney will be live streamed, so make sure you tune in to not miss any cool underdog decks and sweet tech. I'll definitely be in the chat watching as well. That about wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Majiin, and I'll see you next time on World Tour Weekly.